Yeah.
Sorry, missed the hang loose.
I couldn't look. This is in my contract. Over.
Oh. We'll talk Derek Chauvin. We'll talk Johnson & Johnson vaccine. We'll discuss Ukraine in an angle that I don't think anybody has thought of. Plus, we'll talk with General Manager George Coleman. All that coming up and more on today's Wade and Carter Show. Good intro. Good intro. Nailed it. Got to pump myself up.
For those of you on Facebook, I guess I don't give them enough love.
Pumping myself up today because I could have slept in.
I could have too. What's on fire over there?
I filled my coffee to the rim with brim. How are you this morning?
Very wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for asking. And I hope. Are you well?
Yeah, I am. A little allergies still, but
you know what's best for that allergy?
Allegra last night. But
Called a Wednesday.
All that too.
Called a Wednesday today.
That'll clear the passages. Let's do this.
Wade and Carter weather brought to you by the good. Thank you. Well, I'm on the radio here. Wade and Carter weather brought to you by the good folks at Deerland Feed. For everything you need, there's Deerland Feed. It's 48 degrees and going to be sunny all day today with a high of 73.
A nice spring-like day. Beautiful spring-like.
You know, the weather report is wrong every day. Just so you know this. Going into this week, you'll recall that we had like Tuesday and Wednesday were going to be rainy. Now they're saying that Thursday's cloudy, Friday's rainy. They just pushed it back. It's the
last
easiest
Friday,
job.
We at some point last week there was a 100% chance of rain last Friday with thunderstorms.
Yeah,
we had a mist, we had a haze. We didn't have a downpour. We didn't have thunderstorms.
No. You look outside like today, you go, it's going to be a sunny day. Your best chance to get a weather report is to listen to Wade and Carter because there we are. I'm looking out the window. Yep, pretty cloudless sky. Sun's coming up. There you go. It's going to rain someday. Good morning, Rena Shearer.
Rena Shearer, first
one in.
Kendra Douglas, good morning. Marvin Mickish checking in. Roy Gutierrez, good morning to you, Roy.
Karen Webb. Baby.
David Glass, Judge Posey, good morning.
Good morning, Judge.
Diane Tippett's checking in. Christina Wise, Robin Moore Knipling, Tracy Price, good morning.
Luke.
Bobby Leister, Ryan Hopping. Leisterometer still holding steady at 8:30. Madeline Mayer, good morning.
Is he Indian?
Who?
Ryan Hopping. They name you like Ryan Hopping. Hi, Hopping.
Justin Glass, good morning. Scott Snow, Greg Garcia. Terry Murray.
Dances with Wolves.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show.
So where do we start? Derek Chauvin?
Well, I mean, I think shouldn't that be top of page one? Shouldn't the Derek Chauvin, haven't we been captivated and held captive as a nation since last May 25th, almost a year since George Floyd, model citizen, was wrestled from the confines of a car that he had willingly placed himself in and then invited a rogue police officer to put his knee on his neck, where the officer summarily killed him, according to a jury, in second, third, and manslaughter fashion, every way possible, but with a machete. Derek Chauvin was a murderer. Why isn't that at the top of everybody's page one? We will ask George Coleman that, as the Victoria Advocate put that article in AP form, no original content, on like page 5 of the sports section, backed by the overpriced obituaries. Looking forward to having Mr. Coleman in studio. He gets it. He's a good man. He's a fair individual, and he goes with the flow of the show. That said, Derek Chauvin found guilty. I found it interesting, some quick quotes. You had Joe Biden praying for the right verdict
And I question, does that mean he had no faith in our justice system? Because ideally, our justice system is probably the best in the world,
It is,
despite some of its faults.
no doubt.
But there aren't many countries that offer as fair a trial as you can get, or the premise of a fair trial as this one. So, and when pressed, he had no answer for what the right verdict was.
Right. I mean,
But wouldn't a verdict delivered by your peers, and it was a jury that my understanding was 6 white people, 6 black people. So, I mean, pretty close.
Whoa. No Pacific Asians?
No.
Well, how do you expect to be fair without having a Pacific Asian in there? That seems to be the latest pandering.
But
group.
wouldn't the right verdict be any verdict? I mean, if there was reasonable doubt, wouldn't that have been a right verdict?
Yeah, I mean, the right verdict is the verdict agreed upon by his peers. So you've got the President of the United States kind of undermining the rule of law by saying, well, I just pray the right verdict comes along. Then you've got Nancy Pelosi. Now, Nancy Pelosi is an idiot from California. And Nancy Pelosi says,
I want to thank George Floyd
for
dying.
donating his life for justice. He donated his life for justice. Hello, sir. I find that disingenuous, and she doesn't believe that, and it's just terrible. Then you got Maxine Waters. I'm trying to put into perspective for you folks what it appears to be that Maxine Waters is a representative from the state of California. For her to fly to Minneapolis and call for confrontation, to call for getting in the face of, to basically incite interaction between peoples over this trial. I'm trying to think, I can't think of anything as idiotic as Michael Cloud, let's say, for example, getting on a plane and flying to Seattle, Washington, and walking to the edge of the
Chaz
Chop thing and saying, defund the police, defund the police. You people are right. And anybody with any sense would go, who is this idiot from Texas and why is he here? Maxine Waters claimed yesterday that Republicans come after her because she's an easy target. Well, you're right.
You make yourself an
you're
easy
an
target.
idiotic dinosaur who hasn't ever done anything. You're right there in the Hall of Shame with Walter Mondale, Joe Biden, and yourself. A lifetime wasted in public disservice.
And nobody should die over passing a fake $20 bill.
100% agree.
Regardless of how he lived his life, and we go down another rabbit hole here.
How many times, though?
I have questions, though, and watching a little bit of this trial here and there and picking stuff up.
Cool. Get the helicopter coming in.
Shut the blinds.
Coming
like
in.
Working with ADD man over here.
Right. It's a duck. It's a duck.
That's George Coleman's ride.
Sorry.
If that's your ride, that's not a good sign.
Not good.
But lots of things surrounding this that I still have questions that weren't answered in this trial. And you brought up a good point this morning that Derek Chauvin probably should have got on the stand to at least explain something. Like, I mean, they had George Floyd in the car. Why they took him out of the car, I don't know. Oh, I'm claustrophobic. Well, gee, what person in handcuffs in the back of a car isn't claustrophobic? Watch all these live cop shows. And not discounting the fact that George Floyd said he couldn't breathe. You hear that a lot.
Sure.
So I can understand why a police officer wouldn't necessarily believe somebody laying on the ground handcuffed that they can't breathe, because you see it in these videos all the time.
It could
just like everybody in jail and prison is innocent.
Could have been all the drugs that, But I mean, that's my latest technique. When I get pulled over nowadays by a trooper, I immediately start going, I can't breathe. I can't, don't tase me, bro.
But did he certainly complicit in his death?
See, I have felt that way. I have felt that is a fair. I don't believe that Derek
lack of
Chauvin,
action might have helped cause his death, in my opinion,
Yes.
for not doing anything other than sitting on his neck with a smug grin for 9 minutes.
I agree. And I don't believe, though, that the officer anticipated that George Floyd was going to die.
No, and that's where
So-
Maxine Waters and others calling, not happy with the second and third and manslaughter charges that he was convicted on. There's still people out there, well, you should have got first-degree murder. How would you approve that? I can't believe that Derek Chauvin woke up that day and said, I'm going to go kill George Floyd. There was no premeditation that I
don't believe so either.
But I do think their history of working back at that club
Correct.
played a role in this.
Yeah.
Which is a narrative that has sort of completely been forgotten.
Maybe that's why he didn't take the stand. Maybe they were going to ask him, did you know Mr. Floyd in a past life? Because witnesses say they did know each other. Witnesses have placed them together at
working
a
at a club at the same time.
And there might have been bad blood over that. I don't think that the officer, from my observation, intended to kill Mr. Floyd. I also don't believe that the officer took every precaution of a man who was tied up on the ground, face down. He didn't take every precaution to protect and serve. He clearly is a bad cop. But is he guilty of murder?
No, if you kill somebody in a robbery, you're guilty of murder. You can be charged with murder and found guilty of murder. I mean, he was committing.
True story.
Yeah,
T-Lat says, what about the drugs in his system? There's always exacerbating circumstances that, there always seem to be. Let's take a quick break and then let's get our general manager. I call him the editor. Now that may not be fair to him. Maybe we'll see if he wants to claim the content or just the bottom line. We'll see how he's doing. Allen's Record Service, folks.
Depends on the day.
578-6300. That's Allen's Record Service. That's your go-to tow tube. Wherever you need to get, they can get you there. Get you there. Come on. They got a 75-ton crane to get your Suburban out of the river if that's what it takes. The VCS companies can help you make that phone call. Go to the only locally owned and authorized AT&T retailer right there on Kerr Boulevard, just inside the loop off Main Street.
If you're a first responder, get there, get FirstNet, dedicated network just for you.
Fantastic.
Nobody else has access to that.
A designated network to keep you in touch with other first responders. Chesnick Furniture Company, 101 years in downtown Victoria, 71 at their current location. Bobby Leon and his family simply believe you just do better at Chesnick's. We say Chesnick and Love make your house a home. Reach out to them this week. Go by, window shop. They encourage it. They like it. The weather's beautiful. Go downtown, get you a bite to eat, wander around, look at downtown. Downtown's evolving in a positive manner. Go down and walk around and look through the windows at Chesnick Furniture. And then, of course, Veracruz today, it's a no-brainer.
Wednesday today.
It's Calendar Wednesday. Today is the day to go in. I defy people to go in who have not had the caldo. I'm one of this. And I know
what you're missing.
If you haven't had them bring out that trash can full of soup, it's just phenomenal how big a bowl it is.
It's huge. It's enough for 2 meals.
It really is. And they'll help you package it up and take it home. So, Ash, I'm going to go around our friend, and I mean this sincerely, and I'll get to a little bit of kind of self-deprecation, but I'm also going to get to kind of pat us on the back about George being here. And I'm going to go turn the camera while you introduce our guest.
Welcome back to the show, sir.
Great to be here.
Glad you're here.
Studio. This is great.
Thank you. Yeah. We had nothing to do with it, but we'll take full credit.
Oh, always take full credit. They're going to give you the blame. So
yeah, that's exactly it.
And that's why you're here. No,
Jeremy Kretzer, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Jeremy. Boy, he's a fantastic baseball coach and a great dad. So let's start with that because it'll be fun. How did the committee of committees on committees, like over the potato salad yesterday and the Advocate in the lofty heights of Regency Tower over there, how did you decide to put another article about an unidentified woman who we all know who she is? We all think we know who killed her. We all know where she was found. We all know who it is. But another article about, well, we still don't know anything on the front page, and Derek Chauvin's on the back of the sports page.
It's our focus what
Local?
is local? What is local? We're not going to not run national issues. We are going to run it. But I'll tell you, is there anybody that didn't hear about the verdict yesterday?
Well, correct.
It's not really news. Now, with the local issues, you don't get that kind of play much of anything else. We feel like this is what we own and what we control and what we take care of. That's our local area. That's our priority.
Beautiful.
National news, get it anywhere. I got it. You got it. We all got it from other sources yesterday. And if I try and compete in that area, I'm going to fail because people are going to look at the paper and say, I know this.
Yeah.
You're not telling me anything new. It's supposed to be a news paper.
Right. They either got it on television, the radio, on their watch. They showed up on their watch. Tell me this.
ESPN.
We had our friend Emmett Alvarez on yesterday, and I'm just curious with today's paper, how did Emmett get you guys to deliver March's Revista to my house today? How did he talk you into that?
He didn't. I know what happened there. He commandeered his friends, and they all went and
They bribed the paper boys.
paper boys. They worked their magic on the paper boys. I think there might have been some saps involved.
Right, sure.
Oh, no, it's capitalism. You wrote me a check.
There you go. Very good of him.
Now, at the same time, it's something that we are interested in doing. We think he has a very unique voice with La Revista, and that becomes part of our paper if he chooses to use this for distribution, which he does from time to time.
It's a nice product.
It is a nice product.
Yeah.
And we're happy to have it.
Yeah, no, he's good. I'd like to see it. I think on the front of that is an article about the new police chief, Robert Arredondo, who has been here now several months. I'd like to see Emmett get more current with. So that's March's edition. We're in late April, but if he'll pay you to take out the old papers, take them. Shoot, yeah. Now, what did we talk about the other day? Actually, I said I was going to ask Mr. Coleman about.
Oh man, I've slept since then.
No, it was important though. It was a good one.
I've slept since
Oh,
then.
I know. I'm giving you a paraphrase of. I'm giving you a paraphrase of questions we get on a regular.
I know what it was the other
Yes.
day. It was the Dale Zuck election fraud stuff.
Yeah, so that was a big deal, and so to refresh those of you who may not have read the paper, somebody got a hold of, and it may not have been the same person. I don't know. George can fill in the blanks. There were at least one person involved, got a hold of a campaign propaganda piece, typical, vote for me, for both Kenneth Wells and for Dale Zuck. And either person or persons made copies of that, somehow had access to the teacher mailboxes at the high schools and put this propaganda into the boxes. Now, this ends up on the front page of the paper. And it's the headline is something like, you may remember the headline. The headline was something like local candidates report ethics violations. And the logic being that these two gentlemen, when they found out that this had been done without their knowledge, without their participation, without any regard for the fact that there were ethics violations if this occurred, they self-reported. They were above and beyond the call of duty. I mean, I'd be like, hey, if you take my business card and you go make a bunch of copies of it, and you go put it in every car at Walmart, I don't owe anybody an apology. It was stolen information. It was distributed by somebody I didn't know. It's not my fault that my business card's on the windshield of everybody at Walmart. However, they both reported it.
Law 101, not knowing the law is no defense of the law.
Fair enough. But it wasn't until, first of all, the headline is one that if I hadn't known Dale, I would have said, I knew those guys were crooks. All politicians are crooks. And because I went ahead and read the article, it wasn't until I read to the back of the bottom of the left-hand column of the page that it said that both men admitted they had no knowledge of this and it wasn't really their fault. What I've gathered and what our listeners have gathered is that as an entity, not you personally, as an entity, the advocate is putting forward a slate of being pro-bond, for Mandy Lingle and for Dr. De Los Santos. Both may be equitable choices. I love Dr. De Los Santos. She's been a guest on this show. But how do you stand with your journalism hat on the issue of shouldn't those ever so and not so subtle endorsements be on an editorial page, and shouldn't there not be any slant at all to the reporting of the basic content of the election?
I totally agree that there should not be a slant. And I reviewed that story after your show, and you and I discussed it just slightly. And I have to disagree with your assessment of it. And here's
I knew I was wrong. I knew I was wrong.
No, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying I disagree. Here's what I got out of this was that it was known to the candidates that this person was going to. You just got to pick up a flyer.
Was it known?
Here, that's where it gets interesting. And as someone who's run for office before, you rely on volunteers, and it's up to the candidate to train the volunteers.
Correct.
Flyers that I want distributed, and I've got volunteers that are going to distribute them for me. It's up to me to make sure that they're aware of the law. And to answer that question, it's up to me to ask the question, what are you going to do with my flyers? And if they're going to do something that's in violation of a campaign law, then it's up to me, because the buck should stop with me as the candidate, that I tell them, well, you really can't do that. Let's talk about doing it some other way. You just can't have flyers on out there and tell people, pass these out.
Right.
That's irresponsible. We don't want our public servants to be unaware of the law, or just say that I've got no responsibilities for the people that work for me. That's not what we expect. So that's point number one. Point number two.
Very legit answer, by the way, folks.
Point number two is that with regard to the situation, it was reported to the candidates that, hey, you have this situation that's going on, and the right thing to do is to self-report. And both candidates said, yeah, that's what we need to do. We need to self-report because we don't want somebody else reporting. So they did. And they did the stand-up thing. It's hard to control volunteers. My wife is heavily engaged in a campaign for Board of Education when we lived back in Tennessee. I told her what happened, and she said, yeah, I get it. I mean, it does. And there's not a person out there that doesn't understand that this kind of thing can happen.
Sure.
Now, as you point out, what's going to happen is that I don't think anybody really gives a darn whether this happened or whether it didn't, because when you look at the candidates that are running, there's a pro-bond candidate and an anti-bond candidate in the two races. There's a bond issue on there. There's one and only one thing that's really going to matter in this election, and that is, do the people of this area want that bond? And I think you're going to see an alignment with who gets elected and whether that bond passes or fails. And that's a big question.
So then if nobody cares about this issue, why would it make the paper?
Because it is a violation of the ethics law. And they self-reported it, and we reported that they reported it.
It's funny because I can go back and with Dale, and if Dale was here, I would say, Dale, complete ignorance, because Dale, a lot like me, when I was dumb enough to run for public office, I just ran under the idiotic premise that I just wanted to help, and believe I could have. And I ran into, there's an idiot, happens to be a female. Those two things are totally exclusive. But this idiotic woman named Clara Ramos here in town, who's just the devil incarnate, on 3 different occasions filed ethics violations about my campaign with the state. Now, don't worry, she loves this attention. Clara, there you go. Have a great day. So by the time I was not elected, which she had nothing to do with,
No, you were responsible for that all on your own.
Absolutely. My failings are 100% owned by me. The ethics guy, the attorney at the state, would call me and go, "Hey, Brent, your buddy sent me another letter." I mean, we laughed about her. And so some of these things are not,
And there are others like her that do this all the
they're
time.
just ne'er-do-wells with no real, they're not bound by, because they're not really in the public eye all the time, and they just kind of scurry around like roaches in the darkness. So that's kind of just, that's her moment of fame again. I'll bring her out because it's just easy to bring her out and beat on her for a minute. But when I look at the Advocate, there are people who give me credit for you being here because the seat was freed up in part because of my total disdain for the former editor of the paper. And I want to tell you that we made a good choice. I think you've done yeoman's work since you've been here. Everybody that knows my position with the Advocate has commented that the product has gotten better. In fact, I've had some people say that it may not be quite as edgy. Maybe it needs to be a little more edgy, but that it's not. There's every story doesn't have. Comber had the ability to take a man who donated a kidney to a stranger and somehow say that he was irresponsible. We would find a way to demonize the good guy. In every article, there was always controversy. And it was, you just simply don't have the journalistic expertise at the paper to pull that off. We don't have Woodward and Bernstein to hammer everybody on everything. And I used to go to, county court, and I would watch like this kid try to dissect what Judge Zeller was doing and just didn't have the ammunition to do it.
Hang on, Colin.
But you've gotten so much better. I want to go on record as saying you're so much better.
And there's a lot of good things to talk about going on in the Victoria area. I'll just list a few of them that we've got going on right now.
Please.
The Best of Victoria magazine will be in your paper this coming Sunday, 64-page magazine where the people voting for who the best businesses were in this area. We're very excited about that, one of our more popular editions. Secondly, the number 175. Texas is 175 years old.
There you go.
Victoria Advocate in May is 175 years old, the second oldest paper in the state of Texas.
Pretty awesome.
Galveston's number one. But we are putting together a history of the last 175 years as reported in the pages of the Advocate. That's going to be about a 32-page paper. Section's going to go on out on Mother's Day, May 9th. And last but not least, one of my favorites, Varsity Cup Time. Quentin Shepard wrote an article in our paper not too long ago where he's saying, we need to really recognize the kids in our region, not just the athletes, but for their scholastic abilities and for the things that they're doing in the community, their volunteer work. And that's where Varsity Cup comes in. We have had the coaches and the athletic directors nominate over 200 good kids who are playing sports, who've got a GPA of over 3.0, who are involved in their community and making a difference. Where we go ahead and promote these kids. We look at our Facebook page right now. We're promoting about 8 different kids a day who were nominated on Varsity Cup. And at the end of May 30th, we will announce who were the winners and who gets our scholarship for what's going on for furthering their education.
I love the building of community through the newspaper. And remember when being in the newspaper was a good thing. Good morning, caller. Talk to us. Hello, caller.
Good morning, Wade and Carter.
Hello. If you were the caller, call us back. I'm sorry we lost you there. We're here. We invite your calls. 361-575-9509. George is here. One
question here says that you may have oversimplified things, that choosing the candidate for the bond is more a choice of who will better represent us, or candidate for not necessarily the bond, since that's a separate issue, that they're choosing the candidate that will best represent them in their district, not necessarily the bond.
And they may be right, and I could be totally wrong.
Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Okay, great
Good
question.
question.
Let's
We'll
ask
ask
him. Then we're going to
Thank
ask
you.
him that right now. And thank you. And then he said, this caller, to his credit, said, "Hey, I thought we were going to ask him the most important thing, and that is, how did the volunteer get access to the mailboxes inside the school? Because if you've ever tried to check a kid out of school, you have to give a blood sample, urine sample, ID, DNA, hair follicles.
Birth certificates.
You got to have it
Yeah.
all just to get a kid out of school. You can't just walk through the offices and go put stuff in the mailboxes. So how did that happen?"
I may have misread the release from the school system, but my understanding was it was an actual employee of the school system.
Now, see, I thought it said it was a non-district employee in the paper. Is that not correct?
An employee who wasn't a district employee or
That's
something.
right.
It was
Yeah,
weird.
right. But the word employee made me think they had a legitimate reason.
I mean, was it a janitor or somebody? I'm just curious. I mean, is that something we don't?
Don't know.
Okay, all right.
But
Interesting though. To me, that is the story. You know, that
yeah, well, apparently the school system, I would assume, had no problem with the person being in the area, but probably reprimanded that non-employee, whatever.
right?
It was,
Sure. Yes, sir.
reprimanded that person for doing what they did. But here's what you'll discover: people don't like to talk about personnel issues, and they'll just like, this is a personnel issue, and we handle it.
There you go.
But I believe electioneering on government time is.
I mean,
It's a personnel issue.
but you know what?
if not a law, certainly a policy violation.
Pretty sure we could probably get FOIA involved if we wanted to. If we cared enough to know who did that, we could do that.
Yeah, and it's a different issue.
Yeah, and I really don't. I just think it's worth noting, just in their defense. And by the way, in our defense, just so you know, I haven't. Let's see. Yeah, Rena Shear says, "I'm not just voting for the candidate that's for or against the bond. I look at the overall candidate." You know, Bill Posey was on our show earlier, and somebody had asked him. Bill Posey was on his own show, and we visited with Bill afterwards. Somebody had asked Bill, that 30,000 foot type question. So why is it that Victoria's 71% Republican on paper and 71% vote conservative and all that? And said, why is it that the local newspaper, in their effort to make money, runs, while they're trying to make money, runs contra to that and gets viewed as a liberal newspaper all the time? And why is that psychology to bring in readers? It seems like Republicans watch Fox. Is there a reason that the paper comes off as liberal to this group?
Well, I think it probably goes on back to the previous editor. He was in that slot for about 10 years or so.
Right.
And my understanding is that there were some slants that went on. The problem that we have today is that even though Mr. Calvert's been gone for nearly a year, that perception persists. And when some people call me, and we'll chat a little bit, and I'll say, what are you reading that makes you feel this way? What's in today's paper? What was in yesterday's paper? What was last week's paper? And oftentimes it's nothing. Sometimes there's something to it. You and I talked about a situation.
Yes, sir.
Last time I was on with coverage of the Republican National Convention, which was slanted.
I think I was wrong then too.
Actually, you're right. That's why we remember it so
Right.
Cow, it was right.
That's
Look
right.
at that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Victoria.
So,
One time.
But because of the fact that we were able to further cover the convention, what we call it, we cut some stuff out and left it on the floor, as opposed to
Yes, sir.
Stuff that came out through the wire.
But you pointed something out here, though, with this story. You can disagree with their viewpoint. It doesn't mean they're right.
School board president Mike Mercer says it was definitely a non-direct employee of the district.
So is that a contract employee?
It could be a substitute teacher. How about that? Could be a substitute teacher. That's a non-direct employee.
I never got the impression that it was somebody who just walked in off the street. Because like you said, we protect our kids these days.
Yeah.
Sure.
You just can't just wander around in school. So if there was with somebody that just kind of wandered on in there and started sticking things in, I worry about that. I don't
Yes, sir. Oh, we got another caller.
George is good for calls.
2 in 1 day. Welcome to the George Coleman Show. Who have we got?
Good morning. Hey,
Hi,
BJ Nelson, how are you?
We've been worried about you. You haven't been on in a couple of days.
She's still in Facebook jail.
Oh, you were in
Yeah.
She's in Facebook
Because she
jail.
won't write trash services, and
That's right.
I forgot about that.
That's a funny deal, and thank you to the Advocate for not being that censoring. This is BJ Nelson.
But there's some local news.
There's a great story, some local news for you. She
And really that wasn't an option. So then we took it for a little while longer, and then we haven't had a price for 7 or 8 years.
You want it back?
On 80% digital. I'm a little confused how the digital works. I was going to get you to explain that to me. And I know that's probably your marketing department. But if you could explain how the subscriptions work on digital, and because I'm forever getting, you have 3 left after 5. And I'm like, why can't I get subscribed digitally and have ads?
Well,
Good. Thanks, BJ. Appreciate that call.
Sure. Just call into our customer service department. They'll walk you through the whole process. Because what they'll do is they'll sign up with the username and password, so that when that message comes on up, you'll say you have 3 more left, or you can log in, and then you just use your username and password to read the articles. That will also entitle you to go to the e-edition. And if you go to our webpage, one of the options along the top is the e-edition.
But wait, there's more.
Yeah, really. You click on that, and then you can look at a physical representation of the newspaper, either today's paper, or go on back in the archives and see pretty much any paper you want. This is particularly helpful if you want to go out of town and see what's going on. But as you said, I like the website itself. I like using Facebook and seeing the feeds, because that way when an article comes up I'm interested, I just bang right on it. And yes, it will ask me to log in, and I hate that too. I think it would have a cookie and remember me, but something to improve on. So click on that, and then I can read the article. But yes, you can get a digital only subscription, and our customer service department will walk you through that process.
There you go. Listener asks, why did the Advocate not host a debate on the bond issue this time?
Well, that's a great question, because then you have to find qualified people for and against the debate, and yet it gets a little bit squishy. We did host the debates on the 2 candidates, 2 zones that were
Yes, sir.
And you can go to our Facebook page and listen to the debate on their issues with the bond, both pro and con, if you so desire.
I think about ramifications, and sometimes they're just unfortunate side issues. If you're going to bring in a guy like Quentin Shepard, who you've spent some time with Dr. Shepard, certainly a bright, shining light. I really enjoy his candor. I enjoy his accessibility, and I actually think he's the smartest guy in the room. At least when it's just me and him, pretty easy there. But as the smartest guy in the room, if you're going to bring him in, and then he tells you what he thinks needs to happen, and then you hamstring him with a no vote, I don't think you should be surprised if he says, well, okay, then I'll go somewhere that wants to listen to me. My fear, and I'm not saying he's never said this nor suggested this to me. I'm just saying human nature is, if you vote Dr. Jacklich before him, the bond got voted down. Dr. Jacklich retired, said, hey, the next guy will have a chance to float his ideas out. You don't stay. It's almost like a vote of no confidence. I mean, I came in, I told you what needed to be done. I took your $200 million bond from last time and pared it down to 100 and whatever. And this is what needs to happen. And if we don't back him, I think there's a chance, or you have to be mentally ready to lose him. I don't know if that should ever enter anybody's mind when they vote, but I can tell you that all superintendents are not just a dime a dozen. And you probably ought to try to work with the guy, who's really, really got it figured out. And I think Dr. Shepard is that guy.
Oh, man, I agree with you again. So a little scary here.
George, you're getting good at this. You're hanging in there.
Well, listen, you hire somebody for their expertise and you're giving them a set of goals. This is where we want to be. And I've heard a lot of people discuss about where we rank in the states and our kids and things like that. And Dr. Shepard is saying, this is the path forward. This is how we elevate our education system. This is what we need to make it happen. And he's laid out his plan, and this is the money I need to do it. So let's say the bond is voted down. So does the goal change? The goals don't change. All right, people are looking for this school system to get better, and they're going to be pointing at him and saying, how come you're not making the school system better? So now he finds himself in a situation where, well, you didn't do what I said we needed to do to make this happen and make it competitive, and now I'm going to be held to a standard that I gave you a path. And so he's kind of put in a tough situation if this doesn't pass, and I kind of get it. It's when my wife and I moved to Kingsport, we were kind of in a similar situation from the standpoint where the city councilmen there were so proud of the low tax rate that they did not invest in the infrastructure, and every freaking school in the city had to be rebuilt. Now, they were in a situation where their debt was almost at zero because of what was going on. So they started with the elementaries, they rebuilt all the elementary, rebuilt all the middle schools, and then redid the high school. My kids said that their entire school life was a construction zone because all they did was move from one construction.
It's like driving in Sugarland.
I'll give you a free subject for a really great expose type article for the Advocate, maybe even series of articles, would be to explore how that as taxpayers.
Hang on, caller.
Hang on for a second, caller.
Hang on, caller.
How as taxpayers, all of our values are going up, and yet there are a whole bunch of properties in downtown Victoria that are on the books for ridiculously low taxable values that allow people to just pay pennies on the dollar to just maintain shells of buildings. They don't get a $20,000 a year tax bill that would force them then to either renovate, lease, or sell that property, which would actually drive development in downtown Victoria. You can look at the federal building that's over there on Constitution, right across from like Greeks 205, big, beautiful building. It's on the books for under $100,000. The lot is worth $100,000.
How do you, well, and there's another question that many of our listeners have had too. How do you juxtapose that if the justification is there's no improvements made, so the value can't increase, but you have people living in a house that have no improvements for 10 years, but values have increased dramatically? You know, and that's not a question for you, but certainly, you know, we'd like to find out.
But I'll tell you, and Brent, you were speaking earlier about the events and activities going on downtown, the Main Street program, the concerts that are being held. This is all part and parcel of driving downtown, and that's going to drive the property values. And it doesn't matter, as Wade was saying, it doesn't really matter if you develop your property or not. If everything around you is going up, the very lot itself becomes more.
Yes, sir.
Your property values are going to increase. So you have to make a decision. You know, why sit on something like that?
Absolutely.
If the area is getting hot and things are popping, then the value will go up. It'll be time to sell when some of you develop.
Absolutely. Caller, welcome to the program. How can we help you?
Hey, good morning. This is James Carter.
Hi, James.
Morning, James.
Can hear.
Hey, just want to say hi, Mr. Coleman. I hope you remember you met back when I was running for commissioner. He was working in the other office for the marketing area and stuff like that. And it was a pleasure to meet him then, and it's good to hear him on the show again today. What I wanted to talk about also was, as you already mentioned, that's why I called, but you already jumped on that grenade for me, was the how everybody's tax, appraisal letter went out, and it's just a lot of people are getting, hurt by that, and the concept in the pocketbook. You know what I mean? It's like people were saying, they've got anywhere from $5,000 to a $30,000 increase, just overnight with no improvement. And that makes it a very hard pill, a very big horse pill for people to swallow. The government is asking us to pay more for property from that perspective alone, and then on top of it, we recognize the need and we all support the efforts for the bond, but it's just another pill to swallow on top of the increase in everything else. The economic impact that we've all had, from COVID and other things with the economy fluctuating up and down. Just pump gas this morning, it was like $60. And it's like, how many horse pills do they expect us to go down and swallow with, one shot of tequila?
Well, I agree.
Yeah,
Thanks, James.
I agree too, but it's a problem because, your expenses are going up, your gas is going up, the gas that runs school buses are going up. Things are increasing.
The duct tape to hold those school buses together is getting more expensive.
That's going up too. Now, it's kind of a dual-edged sword because we always want our properties to improve in value, and that's not just a local thing. All around the country, real estate is going nuts, and we're seeing, it's very mild here compared to other places.
Correct.
My daughter's in the Austin area, and she said that her next door neighbor's house went on the market. They had 5 offers over asking price in order to get into that house. It's just a crazy market right now. So we're seeing that. Now, one thing I'll throw on out that I liked about living in Tennessee, that we don't have here in Texas, is that,
Hillbillies.
well, yeah, I married one. So, and I have to do a shout out. 45 years ago today, first date with me and my wife. So,
Congratulations.
thank you. Corrected her mostly.
Right?
Me.
Awesome.
But what happened in Tennessee was every time you had a property reassessment, it had to net down to zero gain for the county. Now, by that, let's say overall, if the assessment in the county increased by 5%, say the assessment was 5% more than it used to be, the tax rate automatically decreased by 5%.
So they still got $100 no matter what.
Yeah, they got the same amount, and so every tax increase that resulted in more money to the county had to be voted on by the county commissioners.
Well, I like that.
All right, so you couldn't just have a property assessment and then all of a sudden get more money coming in.
I like that.
That was cool. And that way,
A net no gain. We acknowledge that our house value has gone up, and as a result, the county can still get the same money they got last year.
Because the rate would then.
I like that. Little known fact, George Coleman met his future bride at a family reunion in Tennessee. You didn't know that, did you? They're still cousins.
No.
I didn't know it either.
They're still cousins. No, but back when my parents, I think as my parents been married 60 years, I'm fairly certain that they had to have a blood test back then, right? You had to prove that you weren't related in Texas. I do. I
I
think that's
seem to
true.
recall blood tests were involved in something. I thought it was more paternity, but that brings another angle into that I don't think we want to go down.
Real
that.
quick, I tell you
that
where
road.
you don't need a blood test. You don't need a blood test when you kick it. Hook up with Dana Moore de la Garza. Your
652-9157 is the number to call.
one-stop death shop on a Wednesday, called a Wednesday. Get out. Dana Moore will help you plan your funeral, entombment, how you want to be cremated, stuffed, whatever you want. Ash wants to be propped up by the jukebox.
Nice.
Wants to stay there for a couple of weeks. 652-9157. On a serious note, Dana can help you with everything from securing a plot out at Memory Gardens to how you want to be treated, the coffin, the presentation you want, whether you want to be at the chapel or at a church, the type of music you want, all the way down to the last dollar that will be spent on your behalf. And you can control that. You can pay in advance with today's dollars because it is not getting cheaper. You'd be amazed. You ask people, what's a funeral cost? Oh, I don't know. What, $1,500? You better double guess. That ain't right. Motto Mortgage, Terry Murray, she's going to save you the money to pay for your funeral. That's no joke.
Absolutely.
Reach out to her for a refi, a cash out refi. You can lower your interest rate, take money out of your home, and probably lower your payment, maybe even lower your term right now because interest rates are at all-time historical lows. Went Services, talked to Carl Went yesterday. They are blowing and going. By the way, Carl Went is so busy that if you want to get a generator this storm season, you need to reach out to them now.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in April and May, June. It's going to be sneaking
We're
up on
5
us
weeks away, basically 6 weeks.
soon.
Maybe.
Generators, solar panels, general electric work, remodels, new construction. They do it all full service. That's why they're called Went Services. USA Concrete Coatings. whether you need a concrete floor, a pool deck, a porch patio, bedroom floor, whatever, shop floor, they can do it with the textured polyurethane products, antibacterial, antimicrobial, will not harbor any type of oil or anything else, won't peel, crack, fade. It's a miracle. It's USA Concrete Coatings 578 Home. And then Cheryl can design your next party to make it eventful. 928-6803. 920-6803. Ash didn't even know his wife's phone number. 920-6803.
I'm trying to peruse the questions here because there's one here somewhere.
There are some good questions. You know, and this is, of course, we were talking bond and all that. Adam Sugar does bring up a legitimate point, and that I think so many of our listeners would agree with. A big problem in our schools is actually discipline. It's not so much the facility. You know, they always say the church is the people, not the building. There's a lot to be said for the idea that money isn't really the issue. It's discipline that's the issue. And it doesn't make any sense to give the smartest guy in the room a whole bunch of money if we don't recognize the root problem. There's something to be said for that, but I don't think anybody sees that changing.
You know, when my kids were in elementary school, I talked with the principal one time, and even this is like 25 years ago. He was saying, well, there is an issue with kids in the school. And he said, well, let me tell you something, George. And he said, if your kid got into trouble at this school, the least thing they would be worried about would be what I'm going to do to them.
Correct.
More worried about what you're going to do. So that discipline starts at home. You need a very engaged parent. It's kind of one of the problems of our society these days that our educators are dealing with. It's tough. It's a tough question.
You'll like this one. Now, don't be too hard on George because he's from Tennessee. It says, I'll give it to the Advocate. There have been improvements, but can we get some better proofreading on basic grammar? He's going to play that. Yeah, I knew he was going to play that card. What are you talking specifically about?
Yeah, and my email is gcoleman@vican.com. And if you want to shoot me some specific things, or just call me 574-1236, and we can go through it together. I'd be more than happy to do that.
I like that. gcoleman@vicad.com. Good morning, caller. How can we help you? Hello.
Yes,
you are on.
I really take a lot of offense to you insinuating that Kenneth Welch and Dale Vest had any information or knew about this person handing out these flyers. I mean, how can you sit there and say something like this about two decent men in our community? I have known them both for years. They are straight up Texites, and they would have never done anything like this. And they said they never did anything like this. I find it very offensive and typical of the Advocate that flies with very little information that seems to always knock the other side. How come you don't have anything to say about Mackenzie Winkle being a substitute teacher in the schools and having access where no one else has access to go into the schools and pass her education? How can you not see that one is very questionable and nobody even brought that up?
Thank you. Thank you for the call.
Fair comment. Fair question.
I want to make it clear with regard to what I said about the situation was that when you run for office, you're responsible for your volunteers. I didn't say they knew in advance. I didn't say that they asked me to do it. But I did say that as I am responsible for everything that happens in the newspaper, on the news side, ad sale side, delivery side, when you are a holder of public office, you are responsible for the people that are working or volunteering. And I thought I said up front, and I'll say it again. The two gentlemen who were up front acknowledged the situation, self-reported. That speaks well to their character and to their honesty. I don't know what you can say about that.
Coleman denies prior knowledge. In this week's Revista, here's one that says, you say local news. Maybe nobody cares but me, but please explain why there was absolutely no coverage of a pro golf tournament at Victoria Country Club 2 weeks ago. 155 players, their families, tour staff in hotels, retail, restaurants, international, nationwide, and local players, and not a word. The winner was from Norway. One player was from San Antonio, whose family had ties to Victoria since the early 1900s. If I missed it, I apologize in advance. I know it's just sports, but I thought that qualified as news also.
You know, I'm not a big golfer, but I thought we did cover that. I'll have to dig into that when I get back. It certainly should have been covered, but it wasn't. I thought we did. And Mike Foreman's pretty good at covering the golf scene.
We like Mike.
So, yeah, I'll double check on that. But if we didn't, I'll talk to Mike and find out what's going on.
You know, UCLA grad, Mike Foreman is,
Big
but
flag hangs on.
oh yeah, we give him a hard time. But he's Mike is one of those guys that's been a really thoughtful and quality writer for a long, long time. I'm proud of my association with Mike Foreman. I think he does a good job. He's a huge liberal. He and I get along fabulously, though. But
I wouldn't know his politics, but I think he does an excellent job in some of his feature pieces on local athletes and stuff. Phenomenal, right?
Yeah, he's a great writer.
And we couldn't do the Varsity Cup without Mike. He leads the charge on this. He organizes.
He knows a lot about a lot of players, not just in Victoria, but the region. I mean, he's a walking encyclopedia of not just players currently, but he'll dig up names that you've forgotten about from the past. He's phenomenal. Quick question, George. Where do you see the newspaper business going in an age where everybody basically makes their determination on a story from a headline? And it's tough to get people, and I understand the reasons for headlines. You try to bring the reader in and read the story. But to be honest, nobody really reads the stories as much anymore. So where do you see the newspaper industry going? Is the copy in the hand still going to be a tangible asset that people will have in 5, 10, 15, 20 years?
Well, there's two different answers, because you kind of asked two different questions. First of all, we are really big on editing and boiling things down, because we know people's attention span are relatively limited. We try and keep the number of words down to the point where someone starts it, reads it, and finishes, so they get all the silly.
all in one city.
Yeah.
Sentence sometimes.
Yeah.
It's People Magazine philosophy.
Because headlines is like, how do you tell a story in 6 words? Because that's what
Right.
you're asking things to be done. You're trying to give them the gist. All the headline's supposed to do is give you a feeling for what the story is, and then you make it.
And that's changed so much, because that used to be the purpose of the headline, was to bring the reader in, right?
It comes on. Now, with regards to the physical product, I think over time you're going to see that physical paper going away. I've had several people ask me, well, when are you bringing back the Monday paper? I said, I don't see us bringing back the physical Monday
And
paper.
have we told you about Friday?
I think when I was running the daily, it was a 5-day daily when I got there. It was a 3-day daily when I was done.
There you go.
We just trimmed it on down.
Revenue was up, circulation was up. I like it.
It's just the way it is. The people that are reading the physical paper are typically baby boomers and older. There are some younger folks. Judge Zeller tells me, I read the paper. I love the physical paper, but he is not
Typical.
Yeah, it's not normal for that.
He's an old soul, the judge. He is an old soul. To be a young guy,
I love Judge Zeller.
I love Judge Zeller too.
And so that's the way it is. They want it on the desktop, the laptop, the phone. Mobile is our number one. I think we get like about 60% of our traffic
Through mobile.
A mobile device, this little device in your pocket here. So if you're asking about the future, that's where it is.
Well, and here's my library of my books is on my Kindle app on my phone. I still have a few, and the odd time I'll see a book that catches my attention. The majority of the books I buy are not physical copies of it.
Good at using iPad. I need that bigger screen.
Real quick, we owe a break. I'm going to tell you that and I always say this, and it's because it's always true. We're very fortunate to have access to people like Mr. Coleman, who will come in on their time and essentially you're walking into a semi-hostile environment. I mean, people have questions. Nobody ever just says, "Oh, y'all are doing a great job." It just doesn't happen. So we really appreciate you taking the time to come in. But I think that the interaction here, the number of phone calls and all the comments, you can go to Facebook later and go to Wayne Carter and read the comments. I think it's there's a demand. I mean, I think people would like for you to come in. We'd like to have you more often. I mean,
well, and I think it shows that the newspaper's still relevant in Victoria, Texas.
It's absolutely, and it also shows that everybody is a Monday morning editor. We all want to sit in our chair and say, "Well, I wouldn't have put that there. I'd have put this below the fold. I would have done that. I would have." It's kind of like baseball. There's the unwritten rules, and I think everybody likes to explore the rules.
But
people have ownership in the local paper. And
when you lose that, you've lost your paper.
Yeah, well, that's true. And as owners, we get critical. Think about it. It's true about our servants with regards to what our city council is doing or what the county commission is doing. We're critical. We're always critical because we feel this sense of ownership and we want things to be better. And that's good. That's healthy. That's what we like to see.
Absolutely. So how about this? If you want to see something look better, be good, be better for your family.
Take ownership.
Get over to Atzenhofer, Chevrolet, Cadillac, Mazda, Mitsubishi today. Whether you want a pre-owned vehicle, which sometimes is the way to go. Let somebody else eat that early. Oh, I drove it off a lot. And now you drive it like it's done $25,000 because they cost so much. But they also service all makes and models. They do inspections. They have a paint and body shop that's accepted by just about every insurance company as being the gold standard in town.
And you can shop for the comfort of your mobile device.
Atzenhofer.com. You can do that. White Trash Services, BJ Nelson, great friend of the show, great friend of everybody in this 7-county region: Holiday Beach, Rockport, Lavernia, Tivoli, parts of
Lake Tahoe.
Absolutely. 550-1826. White Trash Services is your trash service. Razor IT Solutions, Razor IT Solutions, and Transformations.
That's USA.
I like that.
Yeah.
Razor IT Solutions, JP Hull and his team can help you with analytics, help you build a website, help you build a brand. They can help the advocate. Razor IT Solutions could help the advocate explore how to get people to pay online, how to get that money directly to QuickBooks, how to help tie the website to the Facebook presence. That is the kind of service
how to keep Russians bots off the pages.
Right. Keep the pesky people from Bloomington from putting in editorials. The law offices of Steve Kidder. Steve Kidder can help you with everything. Somebody asked Stephen the other day, "Do you do criminal work?" He said, "Not intentionally." But Stephen will represent
and that went over their head.
He will represent you in a criminal matter. Steve Kidder is a fine attorney and a very accessible young man.
I'm hoping we can work with him to kind of get him as a little bit of a legal analyst for some of the Derek Chauvin.
It's kind of like
questions.
We had America's sheriff, AJ Louderback, long before
he was America's sheriff.
Tucker Carlson and those clowns that want to be Wayne Carter.
And don't forget the fine folks at Complete 360 and the Health Bar right here on Red River. If you're looking for healthy eating alternatives, the Health Bar is the place to go.
Absolutely. We ran over a little bit today because we had a special guest, and we appreciate the time. Magic 95.9 is our home. They are the flagship of the Wayne Carter program here at the Tower of Power, Laurent Tower.
George, any parting shots?
Yeah, I just want to say, ask you, Brett, thank you for having me. Always great conversations. We're talking about some important stuff. And we look forward to doing this again soon.
Yes,
Absolutely.
sir, please.
Come back when that 175th special gets closer, because I'd like to. That intrigues me, and it's interesting to see how reporting has changed. If people think that there's some editorial in the reporting now, just go back and read a newspaper from 100 years ago. It was all editorial and very little fact.
Not to mention, we're in the middle of our 5th year, so if you'd like to mention us in your special, that'd be cool. Thanks a lot. Stay tuned, folks. Ralph Salazar, the Hall of Famer, he's got his V8 juice. Brother
Gary comes running in with Sunny D.
We don't know what Brother
hides the vodka well.
Unbelievable.
I got stuff.
You better have content tomorrow, sir.
I got stuff.
Gary Moses on a week-by-week contract with both us and Salazar. Hang tight. We love you, and we'll see you mañana.